The air in the Galactic Senate chamber was thick with anticipation as Ambassador Samuel Rivers stepped up to the podium. Delegates from dozens of alien species shifted nervously, their unease palpable. It wasn't just because of Rivers' appearance, though his youth and humanity's relative newness to the galactic stage certainly stood out, but because the human race had come to represent something different, something they couldn't quite understand. Rivers cleared his throat, casting his gaze across the sea of alien faces. Honored delegates of the Galactic Senate, thank you for allowing me to speak before you today. I stand here, not as a representative of just humanity, but as a voice for a species that has risen against the odds. I'm aware that many of you still view us as a primitive species, unworthy of your time or respect. But today, I am here to ask you to see us for who we truly are. He paused, letting his words breathe in the stillness of the chamber. Humanity, though young, has already shown that it can defy expectations. We have fought battles, internal and external, that could have torn us apart. Yet here we are, standing stronger than ever. We've eliminated poverty, hunger, and disease from our home world. We've reached the stars, literally, and established colonies on planets light years away from Earth. Rivers' voice grew more intense as he continued. But more than that, we've learned. We've learned how to survive together, how to fight not just for our own kind, but for the future of the galaxy. When dark forces have tried to extinguish our flame, we've fought back with everything we have. And when you think about it, what makes us unique isn't our technology or our numbers, but the strength of our will. The human spirit is an unstoppable force. We've shown that we won't back down in the face of adversity, no matter how great the odds. A flicker of surprise passed through the alien delegates. Rivers wasn't boasting. He wasn't making threats. He was speaking from a place of deep, unshakable conviction. Humanity has arrived, delegates. We are no longer the underdogs you once dismissed. We are here to stay, and we will not be overlooked. For those who still believe we're a species to be taken lightly, I suggest you reconsider. A murmur swept through the room. Rivers felt the weight of the moment, and he knew, with a sense of quiet triumph, that his message would echo across the galaxy. The human race had arrived, not with arrogance, but with the quiet confidence of those who had faced impossible odds and come out victorious. In the days that followed, the reverberations of Rivers' speech shook the galaxy. The Vosk, a race of highly advanced but deeply xenophobic aliens, had long dismissed humanity as weak. But now, their leaders began to recalibrate. Reports of increased Vosk military patrols near human borders made it clear they had taken the ambassador's words seriously. The Crixin, a species whose vast wealth had been built on exploiting human colonies, suddenly found themselves facing a new economic reality. Human colonies were no longer the easy targets they once were. It started with a shift in trade dynamics. Crixin merchant ships, once welcomed with open arms, now found themselves turned away or forced to accept harsh new terms. Whispers spread of humans organizing boycotts, using their growing influence to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Even the galactic hegemony, the sprawling confederation of alien civilizations that had ruled for centuries, began to feel the pressure. They had assumed that their technological and numerical advantage would keep them at the top. But Rivers' words and humanity's recent victories made it clear that the galaxy was no longer just their domain. The galaxy teetered on the brink of conflict. Military tensions mounted. The hegemony, which once looked down on humanity, now found itself in a delicate position. It was in this charged atmosphere that Ambassador Rivers once again stepped up to the podium. I stand before you today, Rivers began, not as an adversary, but as a partner. We've shown that we will defend our home, our people, and our way of life. But our ultimate goal is not conflict, it's cooperation. We are here to build a future with you, one where we work together for the good of the entire galaxy. His voice grew firm, yet measured. If any power, whether the hegemony or any other, seeks to subjugate us, we will rise again, as we have before. But we do not seek war. We seek peace, understanding, and the prosperity that comes with mutual respect. The room fell silent as his words sank in. The representatives of countless species, from the coldly calculating Crixin to the stoic Vosk, could no longer ignore the undeniable truth in River's words. Humanity had proven itself not just capable of survival, but capable of thriving, of challenging the status quo and pushing the galaxy towards something new. The months that followed saw the Galactic Senate undergo a profound transformation. Long-standing rivalries gave way to cooperation. A new order emerged, one in which humanity played an integral role. The Vosk and Crixin, once skeptical, now formed military and economic alliances with human colonies. The hegemony, realizing the futility of continued resistance, negotiated a peace agreement that granted humanity full representation in the Senate. For Rivers, it was a hard-won victory, not through war, but through the power of diplomacy, unity, and vision. As the years passed, humanity continued to expand and evolve, becoming a vital force within the galactic community. The Interstellar Alliance, a coalition of species committed to peace and progress, flourished, with humanity at its heart. Rivers, now a seasoned diplomat, remained the voice of reason in an ever-shifting galaxy. And though the road ahead was far from easy, one thing was certain. Humanity's journey had just begun. Standing together with their newfound allies, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that the future, our future, was one they would build together. But Rivers couldn't shake the feeling that their struggles were far from over. The peace had been achieved, but the galaxy was still a powder keg, waiting for the smallest spark to ignite a conflict that could engulf the entire galaxy. Back on Earth, President Elena Torres addressed the media, her face a mask of solemnity and determination. The human race had come a long way, but it wasn't enough. The peace with the Vosk was an important step, but it was only the beginning. Humanity had secured its place in the galaxy, at least for now, but it was clear that other powers, especially the galactic hegemony, were not ready to accept their newfound equality. Rivers, as always, was at the heart of the diplomatic efforts. He was summoned to a high-level summit with representatives from several major galactic powers, including the Zerakians, a warlike species known for their brutal methods and deep distrust of humanity. They had yet to engage in any direct confrontation with humans, but their intentions were unclear. The Zerakians had never been interested in diplomacy, and their recent military expansion into neutral zones had set off alarms across the galaxy. Rivers knew that this summit would be different from the others. The stakes were higher. If humanity could not navigate the political landscape carefully, the peace they had fought for could quickly unravel. The summit took place in the neutral zone, a vast region of space where no single power held sway. The Zerakians arrived in their massive warships, their sleek, black ships casting ominous shadows across the diplomatic hall. The Zerakian ambassador, General Valor, was notorious for his cold, calculating demeanor. He had never been one to mince words, and his reputation for ruthlessness preceded him. As the meeting began, Rivers stood before the gathered delegates, a sense of foreboding hanging over the room. The Zerakian forces had been expanding their territory at an alarming rate, and their militaristic culture made them a dangerous wildcard in the fragile balance of power. General Valor's voice broke through the silence as he addressed the assembly. "We have been watching humanity," he began, his tone flat and emotionless. "You are a species with potential, but you are also a species of great weakness. We will not tolerate your presence on the galactic stage unless you prove you can handle the consequences of your actions." Rivers took a steadying breath, keeping his voice calm and authoritative. "We've proven ourselves capable of forging alliances, of building peace where others would have resorted to war. Humanity is not a threat to you, General. We are here to work with you, not against you." Valor sneered. "You misunderstand, Ambassador. We do not need allies. We do not need peace. We need power, and we will take it." The atmosphere in the room grew tense as delegates from other species exchanged uneasy glances. Rivers knew that the Zerakians did not speak in idle threats. They were a species who took action swiftly and decisively. But humanity had learned to survive by standing its ground. Rivers wasn't about to back down. "We will not be intimidated," he said firmly. "If you seek power through war, you will find only resistance. But if you seek cooperation, we will welcome you as equals." Vaylor's eyes narrowed. "We will see if your words hold any weight when the time comes." The summit ended with no clear resolution, but the seeds of future conflict were planted. As the delegates dispersed, Rivers knew that the real challenge lay ahead. Humanity had to prepare for the possibility of war, but diplomacy and unity would be their greatest weapons. In the days following the summit, Rivers returned to Earth, his mind heavy with the knowledge that the Zerakian threat was far from over. The Zerakians were a military powerhouse, and they had shown no interest in peaceful coexistence. Their ambition for power would not be easily deterred. The human colonies, meanwhile, began to prepare for the worst. Earth's defense forces were mobilized, and military alliances with the Vosk and Crixen were strengthened. Though the Vosk had initially been a major threat, their alliance with humanity had proven beneficial, and the two species now stood together in mutual defense. The Interstellar Alliance, the coalition of species that had begun to emerge in the wake of Rivers' diplomatic successes, also took on greater significance. The members of the alliance, species that had once been bitter enemies, now stood united in the face of the Zerakian threat. Humanity was no longer an isolated force, but a key player in the galaxy's larger political and military landscape. Despite these preparations, Rivers knew that war was not the answer. Humanity had fought to survive, to prove itself worthy of a place in the galaxy, and it would not easily give up on the fragile peace that had been forged. To that end, Rivers sought a new approach, a way to counter the Zerakian threat without falling into the same cycle of violence that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Rivers knew that time was running out. The Zerakian fleet was closing in on human space, and the possibility of a full-scale war seemed inevitable. Yet, Rivers had one last card to play. He reached out to the Galactic Senate, requesting an emergency meeting to discuss a proposal that had never been tried before. His plan was risky, far riskier than anything he had attempted in his diplomatic career, but it was the only chance to prevent an all-out war. "I propose that we offer the Zerakians something they can't refuse," Rivers said during the Senate session. "Not a military victory, not territory, but something that will challenge their very sense of power. A diplomatic recognition that grants them a place in the galactic order, but under humanity's terms." The idea was simple, yet audacious. Humanity would extend a hand of peace to the Zerakians, not as equals, but as partners in a new era of galactic governance. In exchange for their cooperation, the Zerakians would be granted a seat in the Intergalactic Council, where they could influence the course of the galaxy's future. Of course, this was no simple gesture of goodwill. The Zerakians would have to agree to certain conditions that would limit their military expansion and force them to adhere to the principles of the Galactic Accord, a treaty that emphasized peace, cooperation, and mutual respect. But there was a catch. The Zerakians would never agree to these terms unless they believed they had no other choice. Rivers knew that diplomacy alone could not achieve this. The galaxy needed to demonstrate a united front, one that showed the Zerakians they could not dominate the galaxy through brute force alone. The day of reckoning arrived as the Zerakian fleet arrived at the outskirts of human space. The tension was palpable, and every military outpost along the border braced for impact. Humanity had prepared for this moment, but Rivers hoped that his gamble would succeed, that the Zerakians would see reason before it was too late. In a final effort to avert war, Rivers summoned General Vaylor for one last meeting, hoping that he could reach the Zerakian leader before the situation escalated further. When Vaylor arrived, Rivers addressed him with calm determination. "General, we have one final offer for you. It's an offer that could shape the future of the galaxy, but it requires trust, and it requires compromise. Vaylor regarded him coolly, his eyes glinting with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. "Speak quickly, Ambassador." "We will offer the Zerakians a seat in the Intergalactic Council, with the understanding that you will abide by the principles of peace and mutual respect. In return, we will provide you with the opportunity to build a new future, not through domination, but through cooperation. The galaxy can no longer afford the endless cycle of war and conquest. It's time for a new path forward." Vaylor hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing on him. Finally, he spoke. "Your offer is intriguing, Ambassador. But what guarantees do I have that humanity will honor this agreement?" River's answer was simple. "The future of the galaxy depends on trust. And if we cannot trust each other, then we are doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past."